Welcome back to Up Tempo on SicEm365 Radio.
Cynthia, Jesus died for our Cynthias.
Call us on the Impact Health Labs caller line at 254-339-1122.
Julia Roberts, Julia Rob.
Now back to the Bears Den with Drake Toll.
Welcome back into the Petty Clinic Low T Bears Den. Happy Tuesday, everybody. May the 4th be with you. Nicki Collen, the head coach of the Baylor women's basketball program, coming from the Atlanta Dream, the 2018 WNBA Coach of the Year, and now she's in Waco. Her and her family just landing today. Opening press conference tomorrow, coming at 2:30 in the Farrell Center. And we're now joined by WNBA insider Rachel Galligan, former coach too, to talk about Nicki Collen and what she brings to the table. Rachel, thanks so much for joining us on the show today.
I am so happy to be here. So excited for Nicki. I've known her for a long time, going back to my coaching days. So just a really exciting time. I can't imagine the energy on campus right now.
Rachel, I want to start right here. It's very, very broad. There's so many ways you can answer this. And I just want something that everybody can really grab onto if they haven't heard of Nicki Collen. And that is, who is Nicki Collen? What is Baylor getting in their new women's basketball coach?
I met Nicki when I was a very young assistant, and she obviously was a little bit older, had a little bit more experience. And the thing I loved about her right from the get was she had no ego. I realized right away that she was about people. She was about helping the next generation, of whether that's players, whether that is young coaches. And she really kind of took me under her wing in some ways. And I really kind of got to learn the ropes from her domestically recruiting, but also internationally recruiting. We spent a lot of time overseas watching international ball. And then through the years, just kind of maintained that friendship. And I was able to follow her career from her time at Louisville over to Arkansas. Then she was finally at Florida Gulf Coast. So she has coached at a very high level as an assistant. And I think she has really been an integral part of the success of those teams because of her heart for the players and the staff around her. And then when she was able to get on with the Connecticut Sun, her and Kurt Miller, those are two coaches that I admire greatly and learned a lot from myself. It was a no-brainer that from there she would quickly be a head coach with the Atlanta Dream. No one was I was not taken back by that hire. I felt like it was just a matter of time. She is a natural-born leader, and she has a way, an innate ability to connect with the players that I think is extremely unique, especially in this day and age of recruiting and just this generation of players. She has an ability to get the best out of you and find that best out of you where maybe, that hasn't been pulled out of you in a different way. And I think that really showed, especially that first year with Atlanta when she was took that team really to the top of the standings and was named Coach of the Year. And you guys are getting a phenomenal person. She has a phenomenal heart. She's a mother. I mean, everything about her life just screams teacher, screams that she does not have an ego. This is not about her. This is about leadership. And I really think she's a natural born leader.
Rachel, we've heard Nicki reference herself as a player's coach, and that can mean a lot of different things in a lot of different arenas for a lot of different coaches. When it comes to Nicki Collen saying, I'm a player's coach, give us some insight on what she means in that.
I don't want to speak for Nicki, but from my understanding of that and observing her through all this time, a lot of coaches go into the mentality of this is my system, this is what I'm going to do, and I'm going to find the right people to fit what I want to do. Whereas Nicki can take a player and she can get to know that player. I think she is filled with empathy. I think she is filled with an ability to put herself in someone else's shoes and really relate to that player in different ways. And I think that's a hard trait to find, being able to coach a player differently. One player is not coached the same as another player is coached. She really can get in there and she can pretty much, in my opinion, pull the best out of you in a way that maybe not a majority of coaches would be able to do. So I think when you talk about a player's coach, she can get you to believe things that you didn't even realize you could do. She can pull out the best of you. She can push that right button, and know the button's not to push. In terms of not even just your success on the court, but your success as an individual, growing you as an individual. That's how I take it.
Again, for those just joining us, Rachel Galligan with us today talking Nicki Collen and the hire at Baylor University. Rachel, you mentioned recruiting and recruiting on an international scale. That's the question when you get a pro coach. Knowing that she spent well over a decade in the college game, you still get the, hey, she's a pro, she's a professionals coach. How is she going to be able to recruit when it comes to collegiate athletes? Give us insight there. Is this a coach with recruiting experience, and at what level?
I think Nicki is one of the best recruiters in the country. And I would say that right now with extreme confidence, just because of who she is and what she's been able to do as an assistant at a really high level. I think her experience in the WNBA only probably refined that, and being able to relate and understand top tier level players who have now taken that next step in their journey. And, whether that would be domestically or internationally, we all know she doesn't have to go very far. Texas is absolutely loaded with talent, but obviously having a nationwide reach that Baylor is going to have, I don't think that's going to be a problem. I really think she relates to people. People are naturally drawn to Nicki. And on an international scale, that's what I'm really fascinated to see. What is that going to look like? Is that something she continues to build her staff around and maybe recruits to on a high level, looking for that high level international talent? I think it would be a mistake if she didn't at least take it into consideration, given just her experience, the last 4 years in the WNBA and understanding international scale. But she has done this at every possible level, and she understands recruiting, in my opinion, as well, if not one of the top recruiters in the country. And I really feel that.
Rachel, this question was posed to us earlier today, and I think I could answer it just looking at her resume, but I want to hear your perspective on this. Someone asked us, they said, she's never been a head coach in the collegiate game, only at the professional level, and she's walking into a culture at Baylor that is ready to win. Baylor women's basketball is ready to win and win now, continue to win after Kim Mulkey moved on. And the question is Nicki Collen ready to be a head coach, but at the collegiate level right now?
My answer is yes, but I think there's some valid questions to be had there. I'm just going to be completely honest. That's a big jump going from being an assistant at a high-level BCS program at Arkansas. Back in 2014 was her last year there, and then her last collegiate assistant spot, Florida Gulf Coast, phenomenal program. Carl Smesco does a phenomenal job there. So, from there you take your first head coaching position in the WNBA. I think you have head coaching experience at the highest level of the women's game. There is definitely a translation there, and I definitely think she is ready for this position. She knows, she's been on the sideline, she's called those timeouts, she's taken her team to the top of the standings in a really quick amount of time in that 2018 year. But I do think there's going to be a little bit of an adjustment. I mean, you're going from WNBA to Baylor women's basketball, Big 12, this is a top, in my opinion, a top two program in the country. So it's going to take a lot this summer. Hopefully she gets to lean on her husband quite a bit, Tom Collen, who is phenomenal coach in his days as well. But, there is going to be an adjustment, but that's with anything. I would not be concerned about that. I think she's going to hit the ground running, have a great summer of recruiting, and probably get super excited to get out on the floor with her team and start those individual workouts.
Again, for those just joining us, Rachel Galligan on the show talking Nicki Collen, her hiring at Baylor, and someone that knows Nicki, goes back with Nicki. And Rachel, knowing that, her ability to adapt, how well can she adapt to the roster that she's coming into? Because I'll tell you this, you got Nalissa Smith, who's the preseason National Player of the Year, will be, Queen Egbo, Caitlin Pickell, a solid senior core, and then Jordan Lewis transferring from Alabama. It's a loaded roster that Collen is walking into. How well is she going to be able to adapt to this roster day one walking in?
I'll tell you what, I really feel like it's going to be easier to adapt to a roster like this, which in my opinion is filled with pro-ready players. I mean, Nicki Collen, I would guarantee, has watched an extensive amount of Baylor basketball these last few years, just scouting and preparing for, the drafts and just these next generations. Those coaches, those GMs are doing that years in advance. So she already has a phenomenal understanding of what she's walking into here at Baylor. I think that, this team could probably give some WNBA teams a run for their money, in my opinion. At least in a preseason scrimmage or, whatever that might be. This team is incredible. And Nalissa Smith is personally one that I am so thrilled to see how she continues to develop. But I think the adjustment, again, she's used to coaching pros these last few years, and these players are right at that threshold. You know, they are ready to take that step, and we're going to be talking about them and their professional careers here very soon. But I think the adjustment is easier with a team like Baylor coming from the pros than it would be, you know, maybe a mid-major level program where you're dealing with a different type of player.
Rachel, this hire from our perspective that Mack Rhoades made to bring Nicki Collen to Baylor is a win-now hire. This isn't a let a coach get her feet wet for a few years and learn the collegiate game. Nicki has that experience already, and that's why Mack pulled the trigger on this one. In your opinion, what is her capabilities to win now? Does she have the win-now mentality that's going to help bring success to Baylor, not in 5 years, but starting next season?
100%. I mean, look what she did in 2018. Her very first head coaching job in the WNBA, took an Atlanta Dream team that was below middle of the pack and no one saw doing what they were able to do. So she took a team that bought in immediately to her system, believed in exactly what she was saying from the get, and transformed that into a contender, you know, in that year. I mean, they had a chance to go win the whole thing, top 3, top 4 team, whatever it ended up being. So I think that experience in itself is a proof that yes, she can. Now you're dealing with a completely different situation here. This is a Baylor team that those players are expecting to go win a national championship next year. So it's no longer coming in and saying, okay, let me teach you how to win. It's okay, let's take what we've been doing. Let me add a new element to this and let's go win this national championship. I definitely think she is more than capable of doing that.
I love that. That's a lot of confidence in a coach that has great collegiate experience and WNBA experience as far as coaching style goes. I'm looking right here at that 2018 year at the Atlanta Dream, and her team was 8th in the league in points scored, but 4th in the league in defense. And you look at that, seems like a trend in her coaching. Her defensive rating was 1st in the league that season. An emphasis on defense. Is that where Nicki Collen makes her bet when it comes to coaching women's college basketball or coaching women's basketball?
Yeah, I think she takes a lot of pride in it. I mean, it goes down to her roots as a player, I believe. And I mean, I agree with it too. I mean, yes, everybody wants to score points. High octane offenses are super great, but you know what happens on the night where shots aren't falling? You've got to be able to rely on that grittiness, that defensive attitude, that edge to you. And I think that's what the attitude that she brings to all of her teams, and they buy into that toughness of, you know, even on nights where shots aren't falling, we are going to fuel that by how tough we are defensively. And I mean, I'm not telling you guys anything you don't already know. This Baylor team is scary in terms of the length and the athleticism, and not just defensively, but their ability to absolutely dominate the glass. I mean, she is going to continue to hit that nail on the head from what Kim Mulkey has been preaching the last 21 years about defensive, really tenacity. And that is going to be what we can always lean on, regardless of what the scoreboard says. We're going to lock teams down, and you've got the team to be, in my opinion, they should be the best defensive team in the country next year.
When it comes, Rachel, not just to style of play, we talked about she values defense, as a lot of ex-players do, which is great. But you've got to build a staff around you to help bring your culture and facilitate that at a university. When it comes to hiring assistants, obviously she's got connections not just in the professional game, but in the collegiate game. Where, really, for a coach like this, where do you look for assistant coaches? Is there a current staff that you see her keeping intact with her to bring to Waco?
Well, I think that's an interesting discussion. I was kind of chatting with a few other coaching friends this morning about where does she go with this. That's going to be fascinating because I think you have to establish deep, deep, deep roots in Texas. You have got to cover your base there and find someone that is deeply rooted in, you know, grassroots basketball, being able to help you understand the state, explain how it operates. I know Nicki already has that, but you've got to be able to protect your home court and recruit the state of Texas. You know, and I would be curious. I mean, every coach has in their mind, if they were to get a position, you know, who would they bring on their staff? Obviously, she had a phenomenal staff with the Atlanta Dream. I don't know how that translates. Sounds like one is going to stay back and be the interim. So I think, you know, at this point, Nicki has so many connections back in the collegiate game. I think you've got to lean on existing college coaches, probably at a high level, ones that you have a relationship with. Any coach will tell you it's about trust. It's about trust and it's about loyalty. And so just leaning on those relationships and bringing a group with you that, one, can recruit, two, fits your system, and it's like-minded individuals, but also ones that you can lean on and ones that you can trust, and maybe they really complement your weaknesses that you might bring to the table and help you as you translate into that Big 12 conference slate.
Rachel, I got two more questions here for you. And I'm sorry I'm keeping you a bit over time, but I love the just the insight that you're giving us, because there are a lot of people who don't know a bunch about Nicki. But with her hiring, it's a culture fit. Baylor is looking for a culture fit through this head coach. And I've seen videos of her leading a Bible study and her talking about faith in the past. And she's got that mantra that, hey, she's going to fit that really strong presence, strong culture, PR. Can you give insight onto that and what she'll do here at Baylor from a culture standpoint?
I think again, I can't speak for Nicki, and I'm excited to listen to her press conference. I've only been able to send a couple text messages. I'm sure her head is spinning at this point, but Nicki knows exactly what she's walking into, and I would say this is, no pun intended, a dream opportunity for her in terms of fit. Every coach kind of has that school or that program in their mind that they really feels like is a reflection of them as a person. And I would not be surprised if that's how Nicki feels about Baylor. Just, from the believer standpoint, from the dominance standpoint, we could go across the board of how this is a great fit for not just her, but for her family. Being a mother, being someone who has spent extensive time in the South and really embraces that. I just think that, you're getting someone who, again, is not going to have an ego. She's going to come in and equally embrace Baylor and want to embrace that culture, the people around there. She is so selfless when it comes to her time. She is all about giving her time to, whether it's fans, whether it's media, whether it's her players. It's everything she is about in terms of just being a servant leader. And I think she's going to exemplify that every single day and every decision that she makes. And I think the community's really going to embrace it.
Rachel, last question here before you get to our Bear games, and that's pressure. She's walking into a university at Baylor that it typically ranks in the top 3 in the country in fan attendance. They spend more money than anyone else in the collegiate game on women's basketball, and there is the pressure to win. There are a lot of coaches who wouldn't accept this job because they knew walking in, replacing a legend, it's always the toughest thing to do in sports. But she's taking that on, and there is a lot of pressure that comes with this job. How does Nicki Collen handle pressure?
Oh, man, you're giving me chills. I've got chills thinking about it, because I was actually thinking, when Kim Mulkey went on to LSU, I thought to myself, man, that would be so hard to follow her. I mean, can you imagine trying to fill Kim Mulkey's shoes? How do you even comprehend that? And yesterday, I'm going to be completely honest, when I heard the news, my jaw hit the floor, and I think I was in shock for about 5 minutes. And then once I got through the initial wave, I thought to myself, there is not a better person for this opportunity, because I know Nicki is approaching this not from a standpoint of like, how do I tackle this after Kim Mulkey just walked out the door? She's approaching this as, this is a once in a lifetime opportunity. I know I am more than capable. I was born for this. I was designed for this. This is more than just a couple year thing. This is a destination for me. And I really feel like you're right. The pressure is insurmountable. It's like I said, you're giving me chills talking about it, but I think as a coach, this is what you live for. As a competitor, this is what you live for. You live for that once in a lifetime opportunity that most people will never get to experience. And I know she will embrace it 100%. I look at Baylor as continuing to be a top 4 powerhouse for many years to come. And I think that is the expectation, and it should remain the expectation. And I think you've got the coach here who understands what that means. She's going to continue to learn as she gets there and she embraces the community around her. But I think that she's got a really good chance to keep this going. I really do.
Rachel, you returned the favor with the chills. you gave that right back to me with talking about how she's able to handle pressure and come into this job and be successful right away. Well, I want to give you our 2 Bear Games questions of the day. And that first one being, we're Rotten Tomatoes guys here. We've already been through the fact that Paddington 2 has a 100% rating on Rotten Tomatoes for some reason. But 1 to 100, what is your Rotten Tomatoes rating of what Baylor has done with this hire to bring Nicki Collen on staff?
Oh my gosh. I mean, I'm not going to like just be rainbows and cupcakes and just be so ridiculous. I'm super excited about Nicki. I think this is phenomenal. I give it an 85. I think it's a huge win. I think you win the press conference. You get a great fit for your community. I do think there is going to be a little bit of a learning curve there, but nothing that's not manageable. I give it a pretty high rating, 85.
So it's not a Shawshank Redemption or a Paddington 2, but it's like a Saving Private Ryan. This is still a great movie, but not necessarily legendary yet. It's got to get to that point. And then, Rachel, the last question here for you. This one being a little bit more Baylor-centric, but I want to get your outside take on this. And that is, what does Nicki Collen need to do in year one with this roster coming back to have sustained success at Baylor?
She's got to get in that locker room and have a deep connection with that roster. It immediately has to be from the start about this team, about these women, about their goals, about their visions, about how they feel. They've been through a lot these last couple of months. This last month, there's a lot of change here. Okay, so how do we harness that energy in the locker room where we are all getting to know each other, we're understanding one another, understand that you're building that trust there, right? You're building that camaraderie. Everyone is starting to learn her, so it has to start. It's like a foundation. And from there, when you get everybody on that page, then you can start to, kind of instill your vision, your culture, the expectation. You have to know those goals, those desires, those dreams, what makes people go. You have to build that foundational relationship with this team from the start, and I guarantee you that's the number one thing she's focused on.
I love it. Rachel Galligan, former coach, now an insider for Winsider. Thank you so much for coming on today and giving us perspective inside of Nicki Collen and what she brings to Baylor. This was an absolute pleasure.
I appreciate it. Thank you so much. And if you guys ever want me back on, I'm always yours.
Hey, come on with it. We'd love to have you. Thanks again for your perspective, and hopefully talk to you soon.
Thanks, guys. Take care.
Again, that was Rachel Galligan of Winsider. She is a former player, Hall of Famer, women's basketball analyst, and gave great insight. Someone that knows Nicki Collen personally. That was spectacular. When we come back, we'll be joined by Morgan Uber of the Big 12. She's a Big 12 digital correspondent. Following her, Mike Neighbors, the head coach of the Arkansas women's basketball team, joins as well. Talking today, Nicki Collen and her hire at Baylor. Don't go anywhere. We'll give you more perspective on what this does for the Big 12 with Nicki Collen coming to Baylor when we come back. This is Up-Tempo.
Signed, sealed, delivered. Baylor has filled its women's basketball coach